Argentina fans celebrated England's World Cup quarter-final victory against Norway on Saturday, not because they like Thomas Tuchel's team, because they want to be the ones to eliminate them, us, from the tournament. Argentinian players, including Lionel Messi, were filmed chanting about beating England for Las Malvinas, which is what they call the Falkland Islands. So the actual millionaire football players will celebrate their win by singing about the Falkland Islands, which is kind of mad when you pause to think about it. But maybe not. Stacey Bragger is a member of the Legislative Assembly of the Falkland Islands, their equivalent of an MP. He sent us this voice message from the island's capital, Port Stanley.
Huge excitement here about the game taking place tomorrow night between Tuchel's boys and Argentina. It doesn't get much bigger than a World Cup semi-final, but with it being Argentina, it obviously has added meaning for us here in the Falklands. I'm sure it's going to be a great match, and absolutely everyone down here is hoping England win the game and get to the final. In amongst all of this, though, are some recent comments from the Argentine government about how we here in the Falklands are an implanted population. Sadly, it's more of the same tired rhetoric from there. It's nothing new, we've been dealing with it for decades, and we're just going to carry on making a success of our home, the Falklands. Today, we're focused on the football and how brilliantly the team have done to get to this stage. We don't have any interest in seeing politics being brought into sport, or the islands and the people being used as a political football. Sorry for the pun. I'll just wrap up now by saying that absolutely everyone here is rooting for Harry, Jude and the rest of the boys and wish them the best of luck. And we're all hoping that they'll do the business tomorrow night. Come on, England.
Stacey Bragger there, he's the equivalent of an MP in the Falkland Islands. Matthew Benwell is a professor of geopolitics at Newcastle University. Matthew, morning to you.
Morning.
Is it fair to say that Argentinians care more about the Falklands than we do? It's more pressing in their mind than it is perhaps in our collective minds?
I think that's right. I think the Falklands, or as you say, the Islas Malvinas, as they're known in Argentina, they mean a great deal to many Argentines. So from a young age, children and young people learn about the islands. They engage with national maps of Argentina that by law show the Southwest Atlantic territories, the Falklands and others as integral parts of Argentine territory. They learn the words to marches that are dedicated to the islands. They learn these in school. They are exposed and have contact with veterans of the 1982 conflict as well. They come into the classrooms, talk about their memories. So I think from a very young age, this connection to the islands is very deeply ingrained. And of course, beyond that, within public space, pretty much every city, town and village throughout Argentina has monuments commemorating those who fought in 1982. And in particular, as on the eve of this important football match, I think that the presence of the islands within football stadiums on banners, songs, chants, such as the one you just played, it's striking just how present they are throughout Argentina.
So
that said, go on.
Sorry, so it's likely that the football team would want to stick one on England for the Falklands almost.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, that was certainly the case back when Argentina and England met in 1986 in the Azteca Stadium, that infamous meeting, the Hand of God, and so on. This was, the events of 1982 were still very raw then in Argentina. And I think 40 years on, this is still something that is still very raw throughout Argentina. This was, if we remember the historical context, a military dictatorship that looked to cover up events and hide away the veterans in the aftermath of the defeat in 1982 and that conflict. So I think this is still something that is strongly felt, and Argentina certainly savours the opportunity to get one over on the old enemy.
Is there any chance the issue becomes live as an actual real-life issue? I mean, there's an argument that the UK abandoned the Chagosians to Mauritius, which has little claim to it, in a similar way, perhaps some people would say, to the way that Argentina has little claim to the Falkland Islands. Is there any chance that we could do the same to the Falklands, abandon the Falkland Islands? Because it's clear that they want to stay part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the recent administration in Argentina under President Milei he certainly hasn't been as vocal as some of the previous administrations, Kirchner I'm thinking about here, and others who have banged the drum a little bit more on this issue. So I don't see a scenario where this becomes sort of live in the very short term. I think Argentina has enough to deal with at the moment with kind of domestic issues and economic issues at home. So I don't see that. But of course, there is the spectre of oil exploration and oil exploitation by the Falkland Islands coming up, which is starting to raise the tensions in the region once again. And Argentine politicians certainly starting to make more statements and become a bit more animated on this issue.
It's really good context, because to me, I think of the Falkland Islands. I'm just young enough. I'm just not quite old enough to remember it. But it's so interesting that it's more important to them than it is to us, and that feels like a thing that's going to surface at some point tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is noticeable. I think FIFA are very careful about controlling any kind of political slogans that get into the stadium. Occasionally, there are the odd one or two that seem to get through, and of course, I'm sure the fans will be chanting and making reference to the islands. Not that we'll necessarily notice that, perhaps as British viewers of the game. If you go to a domestic stadium, as I mentioned earlier in Argentina, or go and watch a game of the national team in Argentina, you will see references to the islands throughout the stadium, and so this is something that is very present, notwithstanding the fact that FIFA will look to probably calm that down for tomorrow's game.
Interesting, Matthew. That's so interesting. Great context for that. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Matthew Benwell, their Professor of Geopolitics at Newcastle University. I wonder if the English fans have any songs. Is there a Falkland Islands song? Because there are famously songs about Germany that didn't go down very well.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a Falkland Islands song.
The row over the future of the Falkland Islands has erupted again just days before England plays Argentina in the semi-final of the World Cup. Pablo Cuerno, Argentina's foreign minister, rejected the 2013 referendum when more than 90% of the islanders said they wanted to remain British. He said that the island's population had been artificially implanted. Well, in a radio interview, Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, dismissed his comments.
The UK's position remains the same. The Falklands are British and they have right to self-determination. That remains the position.
Just some friendly football banter?
Absolutely remains unchanged. I know there's a lot of focus suddenly on all of these things again because of the football match, but actually we should concentrate on the football match. That's what's important this week, and not get distracted about things that simply have not changed and are not going to change as well. So let's focus on the football.
Well, let's talk to Joel Richards, who's a freelance journalist based in Argentina. Good evening to you, Joel.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. Delighted to have you with us. It's pretty provocative, isn't it, for Argentina's foreign minister to essentially say the Falkland Islands population has been artificially implanted, just as England and Argentina are about to have this very high-profile match at the World Cup.
Well, the World Cup has conjured up a whole series of unexpected storylines, surprises, and perhaps things that many people weren't expecting. We saw a number of new names at this year's competition. But if there was to be a match between Argentina and England, then the most predictable storyline would be that this issue would be brought up once again. There's very little new in what Argentina's government has said in the column that the Foreign Minister Pablo Cuerno wrote in La Nación, which is the newspaper here, the equivalent of the Times in Argentina. And the arguments are very similar. It's essentially a copy-paste from what previous administrations have said. They reaffirm the country's claim to sovereignty of the islands. They question the 2013 referendum, as you mentioned. That's a referendum in which I think the result was 99.8% of the islanders voted in favour of remaining British. So, as we said, it's an issue which comes up whenever there's anything on the table in terms of relations between Argentina and England and Britain, and England in this case the football team, of course. And as you said, there's little new here. Every year, Argentina reaffirms its claim to sovereignty in the United Nations General Assembly. They refer to the United Nations resolution, which requests the two countries sit down and negotiate. London refuses to do so. Buenos Aires continues to demand they do so. And as we mentioned, as we heard there from Yvette Cooper, there's just nothing's changed, and everything will remain as it is.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, it was back in 1982 that Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands. Margaret Thatcher's government sent the task force, recaptured the islands. Argentina was forced to surrender. But I mean, Argentina's never given up its claim, as you pointed out there. How much of a factor do you think this is going to be in the whole atmosphere around that absolutely crucial match on Wednesday?
It really is striking how present the islands, the conflict, 1982, remains in Argentina, all around the country. All around Buenos Aires, you have murals depicting their veterans, murals with the outline of the islands. It's extremely present, as we said. It's an extremely painful chapter in the country's history. It came at the very tail end of a brutal military dictatorship, which in the years leading up to the invasion had killed, disappeared tens of thousands of Argentines. They stole babies. They destroyed the country's economy. And so it really was that final chapter in which brought to an end the military dictatorship. So it is perhaps something extremely visual and something which remains in the collective memory, very, very painful chapter for the country. So, as I said, it's very much on the national conscience, and it's also part of one of the songs that they sang at the last World Cup in 2022. The anthem, the theme tune to the song was sang about Diego Maradona, who passed away without being able to see Argentina lift the World Cup once again. But it also talks about the heroes of that war, the Argentine heroes. And that's a song that's still sung in the stands, so that will be heard during the game between Argentina and England. And we hear the players singing it as well in the dressing room. However, it's worth saying that Lionel Scaloni, the coach, Lionel Messi, the captain, and a number of the other players have tried to bring down the temperature slightly, saying that it's just football. They talk about the football rivalry, the recent games between the two countries, rather than focusing on the history.
And of course, I mean, the focus is going to be on the football on Wednesday. Certainly, we hope so. You mentioned Messi there. I mean, he's such a hero there in Argentina. As someone who's lived in the country for many years, how do you think this game is going to play out? Who's your money on?
It's very difficult to say. It's going to be very tight. I do think that both countries, both teams go into the game in a similar position. Both have problems in defence and have been leaking goals. Both have world-class talent. Argentina with Lionel Messi. We saw Julian Alvarez scoring a wonder goal in the previous round, which could well be one of the goals of the tournament. England have Jude Bellingham, who is simply unstoppable right now. Harry Kane, who perhaps had a quiet game in the quarterfinals, but obviously is England's all-time top scorer. So there's world-class talent on both sides. I think the temperament is going to be a big issue. I've had the chance to speak to players who've taken part and been a part of previous matches between Argentina and England, and they really mentioned the emotional aspect of this game. There is so much riding on it. For Argentina, playing England is their number one game. England has lots of rivals, of course. Argentina is one of them. But for Argentina, this is the game. So I think perhaps watching the temperament, we bring back the memory of David Beckham being sent off in 1998 for that kick on Diego Simeone. The temperance is going to be very, very important. But it's a semi-final, and as they say, the form book goes out the window in these kind of games.
Joel Richards, freelance journalist, thanks so much for joining us from Argentina, and maybe we'll come back to you on Wednesday night and find out the reaction whichever way it goes.